Good morning, Antonio.
Hello, how are you, Julius?
I'm very, very fine. Very, very fine.
Excellent, excellent.
Yes. So, uh, as we have
Let
been,
me let me say hi to our friends who are going to listen to us that are
yeah,
helping
okay,
in the
yeah,
organization of this African forum
very
and
good, very good.
these conversations. We want to share them with you eventually. That is the main goal, and I want to say hi.
Yeah, okay. So, and the content and the conversations at this time will be very much about what you call humanist education.
That's right. Yes.
Yeah. So that needs maybe for the listener a little bit of information about what do we mean. What do you think, Antonio? That how would you describe humanist education as different from the regular education you get in the schools? You know, the
Yes.
official schools. Yeah.
Exactly. Well, the curriculums of education in what we call the system is in the world around us, that world that is so dysfunctional and so full of problems of the moment, is oriented to the goals and the objectives of that system. That is to occupy people in areas that are high remunerated areas or that are of greater human demand in order to keep industry working. And for people that goes into different lines of educations is to learn skills, to learn specializations, to learn aspects of science that will help them to develop the careers as specialists or as teachers, as doctors, as civil servants, whatever, researchers, whatever they decide to do, or simple people in society who will help to work the land to make things better for the rest, etc. For us, when we create that denomination of humanist education, we are referring to our concern about humanizing the earth. That is a central core of universalist humanism. That is the current of thought that we all share and under which we have taken the initiative of developing these informative forums that later on will become clear along the way of our conversations in both Africa and Asia, because they are the most populous areas in the world with 80% of the population of the whole planet. And in these areas, still the messages of universalist humanism have not been heard enough in proportion to the masses of people who live here. And therefore, we have made a point to create dialogues that start from the very bottom of society, moving up to the higher levels of organization in society. When I say higher, I am talking that tend to deal with the fundamental principles under which a society is moving. And for example, the level of government, or for example, the level of decision making in that society. Those levels are interesting because these are people who have lots of influence. But in today's world, because information is spreading at enormous speed to the very base of society, is as important as persuading any level of leadership to persuade the normal people, the citizen, the yous and I's in our societies. And really, these conversations and these forums are orientated to you and me and the equals to us, common people. Common
Okay.
people that every day can think more and they have more information and they are more fresh and more intelligent in the view and perception that they have of the world. And they are having more influence over the leadership. So the more that we clarify ourselves, the greater the possibilities of changing societies at the top level, at the level of leadership.
So as you were saying, this project or this ideology of universalist humanism is something that is intended to be, put in practice and introduced globally. You know. So this African Humanist Forum is a part of a wider intention of reaching to the whole world. And actually, uh, since you are coming from South America, where all this started, could you give the listener like a few words about how this started? Why are we here? Why are we suddenly here in Africa, talking about Africa? I am in Iceland. You live in the United Kingdom, and so where did it start, and how did it become such an international movement?
Well, all they started under the inspiration of an Argentinian thinker called Mario Rodriguez Cobos, and his writer's name is Silo. And Silo felt, since he was very young, that he had something to communicate to the humanity at large as a result of his own human experience of reflection and thinking and studying lots of different sorts of information, and in a period that was extremely critical in not only in Latin America but in the rest of the world as well. In 1969, Argentina was under a military dictatorship. And when he requested the authorities to allow him to explain these ideas that he felt were extremely important for people to understand, that fundamentally was talking of the origins of violence and suffering and how suffering spread violence in society, they told him, no, you cannot talk in cities. We don't want you to talk in cities. They were very authoritarian, these regimes. They were absolutely fascist. And they said, if you want to talk, go and talk to the mountains. Sorry,
Yeah.
to the stones, because he said, well, what about if I go to the mountain and I talk there to the people who can manage to come? They say, of course, you can go to the mountains and speak to the stones. And he did that. And people came from Chile, from Argentina, from the north of Argentina, some from Peru and Bolivia. And in that way, they were over two or 300 people, about that number. I, at the time, was finishing law studies in Chile, which I never finished, because really, when I heard what Silo was explaining in Mendoza, in Punta Vacas, in the mountain, I felt so impressed by all that changed the direction of my life. And I started to concentrate in spreading the groups and spreading the message and spreading the teachings that we were receiving within those original groups. And so that is a bit the origin. From there, we spread over all Latin America, and some of our friends went to Asia, and some of our friends went to Europe and to North America, and so on and so forth. And since then, this was in 1969, we are in a number of countries in covering all continents. And for example, in Kenya, in Zambia, and in other points in Africa, we have small groups that also share the same spirit and the same ideals. But we have lots of work to cover, because the process of the planet, of conflict in society, of war, of suffering, etc., are increasing at an exponential speed. And therefore, our action has to also develop and made itself known at a similar speed to catch up with the system and to be able to perhaps impress in a way or have an influence in a way that may have a positive effect in the manner in which the human process at this particular historical time evolves. Because we think that we are in a period of profound crisis of the civilization.
Yes, yes. Thank you for this. That's very interesting. Uh, Well, in my case, I got to know the humanist movement in 1980, some 40 years ago, more than 40 years ago. And that was when Peter Gudjonsson, he had been in South America. He was studying at Harvard, but was in connection with his studies. He went to South America and got to know these ideas. And then later on, when he turned back to Iceland, he, was very much interested in introducing the Silust and the humanist ideas in Iceland. And I was very happy because, like you are saying, it is not starting this turbulent world. We had turbulent times in Iceland by that time, and in the world there were many problems and all that. So this gave answer to many of those things I had been thinking about, even about the increase of, like Silo talked about in his first speech, talk about the tendency to, like for young people, they were taken to drugs and they had no future images of in their lives, and they got into those, escape routes of uh, drugs and drinking and so on. And then also the violence was always on the increase because the weapons were bigger and so on. So when I heard about this concept of the humanizing the earth, it was very interesting for me. Later on, I went to then in around 2000, I went to Africa as a project when the movement was moving global, and we were breaking ground for the humanist movement in Africa because more or less that was a region, a continent where we had not been so much present. And I was there for 10 years, went 2, 3 times a year, and introduced Siloism and introduced how people could work on those ideas in practical terms by starting to meet each other and to start to like because in the grassroots in the villages and then uh, people had different skills, even though they were educated. So some knew how to work sugar from some sugar canes, for we had actually were addressing three elements. We were addressing health, we were addressing education, and we were addressing quality of life. So in those areas, we offered for the organization, like we do everywhere, that people could start to meet, and they could start to learn from each other, because someone even knew how to read and write, and others couldn't, and then they teach those who knew how to read and write, teach the others, and those who learned how to read and write, they didn't have to pay anything. Everything is voluntary, but they had the understanding that now when I have learned how to read, I want to, we call it the reciprocity. I want to act in a reciprocal way. Now I teach someone to read like I was taught. See, so but I am not going further. But this is how it started for me to suddenly, uh, you know, go to Africa. You know.
Good,
But
good. And
yeah,
so you were asking Julius about what is this idea of humanist education.
yeah,
Well,
yeah,
behind this initial teaching in that speech in the mountains called the healing of suffering, where he explains the origin of violence, Silo, and explains which are the ways to overcome violence within our own consciousness, within our own selves. And he provides in a sort of compact manner, in a speech of 20 minutes, the formula in which it would be possible to all of us to liberate ourselves from violence and to change the direction of our behavior and our lives. And then later on in the later years, the principles that have been presented in that speech developed in a wide range of doctrine and teaching and techniques and ways of internal and personal development and a vision of humanity and the world and society and many other consequences of that fundamental teaching that is connected to the human being, his or her heart and his or her mind. That is the origin of violence in society. Violence wouldn't exist in society without the tendency or the actions, violent actions from ourselves, because society is a result of conglomerates of human beings interacting amongst themselves. So it's a very comprehensive and it's a very profound teaching. And the origin of this teaching is not sacred books, is not the revelation of a divinity, but is internal meditation, is reflection, is contact of each one of us with his or her consciousness. And therefore, the sources of knowledge and discovering is in the bottom of our heart and our minds. And therefore, we have something within ourselves that is the strictly humane, that is the most unique characteristic amongst all the living species that we humans have, that is the trigger and is the possibility for our own transformation, the transformation of society, and the transformation of our consciousness and the overcoming of violence. And discovering that secret, that treasure, and the way to approach it is the formula that inspired all our action across the world. And those are the matters that we would like to teach and we want to share with you in society. And doesn't matter if you are working in the village in basic activities related to the agriculture or to the well-being of the people around yourselves, or doing domestic jobs or whatever, or if you are in a very high level of government or science or development or research or whatever it may be, because we are all human beings, and within our consciousness and within our hearts, we are completely equal. And therefore, the same things that we can discover in one job, in one place, in one culture, in one situation, at one particular age, all the others have the same chance to discover and develop. And those are the secrets, if you want, that
yeah.
we want to share with everyone.
No, it's very, very interesting. It's very much in harmony with what I found, that really as you learn something. This concept of reciprocity is quite fascinating, because it is it is it's very open, regardless of your color of your skin or your placement, and of your economic situation. It costs nothing. That you can always sit down and think and get in contact with yourself, and then also you can learn skills, and you can then, with the reciprocity, you can hand over to others the experience you have acquired and the skills you acquired to others, and this is very dynamic also. I like this aspect. No, I think it's a good idea to we are doing our best, our first steps, in formulating this humanist education, and especially for Africa, and we are trying to see how best to do it. And I hope that this little conversation can be a start of something regular, and because for me, the way in which you uh, define and describe the humanist education as different or yeah, different from ways of the system education we get through the schools is very interesting.
It is because, and it's very interesting that you have touched upon this topic, Julius, because this is the essence of these forums that we want to organize. Because really, there we will try to congregate. We will do it by computers. We will not be presentially in a particular country, in a particular place. That is costly, is inefficient, and will limit our possibilities. No, we will do it through the computers, through the networks, by Zoom or whichever platform, is more appropriate for that. And then we will establish discussions on all the fundamental areas of problem that affect humanity today: human rights, poverty, the environment, justice, gender, violence in all its expressions, education, health, all the things that worry us, and they are sources of essential problems of our time. We can discuss with specialists in round tables that can explain the global viewpoints, but also we will discuss in villages, we will discuss in rural areas, we will discuss in cities across all the countries of Africa who are participating. And that will be able to share the wisdom and the common experience of large numbers of people. And all that, by the mechanisms that we create to organize the forum, will be able to summarize, to reduce to the fundamental areas, and will redistribute to everyone who has participated in the forum as materials of reference, of consultation, of inspiration, etc., etc. So in that way, we will create a mechanism for collection, sharing, and distribution of information and experience across the continent. That is a magnificent project, and that will give us lots of material, inspiration, and clarity about things that reading the normal media that is always biased and is always trying to manipulate the minds of people, we will be have directly from the experience of people in the ground, learning and understanding fundamental areas that are the areas of the specialization. So it's a fascinating project where all are going to be actors, active actors, and where we are all going to benefit. And it's worth to do it and to continue building up the conditions that we require to develop this forum in Africa and in Asia, and then all over the world, because we have already done forums of great interesting consequences in Latin America, in Europe, and in other places.
Yeah. No, it's very interesting. And also, I remember that in the days when I was getting to know the humanist movement, then one aspect of it was enough that I could say, yes, I'm with you, is that it made sense to me that in this humanist movement, uh, there was this emphasis to work at the same time as of personal development and of social development. And this came home very easily to me because it made sense that really the society, all the violence and the turbulences and the treating the other bad and so on, all this is something that is a matter of personal. It comes from me, from inside of me. So if I'm violent, then everything. I will be violent to others, and they will be violent. There will be violence everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
It
and
validates our contribution and
yeah, yeah,
our beings in
yeah,
society,
yeah,
where
yes,
we feel that we are anonymous, that we cannot have any influence in anything. No, we
uh,
do. We are
yes,
the actors. We
yes,
transform society, and
yes,
society is us.
Yes, that is it, and I was very taken by this, and also I think Silo said that one time that there will be no development unless it comes from all and it is for all, and that is really the core of, I think, for me, my side of humanist education, that to learn that everyone by his own how I treat others, and I will be contributing to the world, to the better or to the worse. But you treat others badly, it will be a bad world. If we learn to, you know, uh, more or less
Right.
treat each other nicely, then everything will go.
No doubt. Yeah.
It will pave the way for a real development in the benefit.
Spreading. And
Yeah,
the opposite, because, for example, if I am harsh, I am aggressive with my children at home, I shouldn't be surprised if later on I get a report from school that my child that was shocked by my treatment, later on he went and he kicked another kid in the playground of the school.
yeah, okay,
And
okay,
so there are many of examples how
yeah, yeah,
violence
yeah,
spreads and multiplies and contaminates everything, but there are also lots of examples of the opposite.
yes, yes,
And
yes,
then we have to reflect, but also we have to use that understanding
yeah, yeah, yeah,
of
yeah,
that
yeah.
mechanism.
So I think it is a good time to call this a piece of education, this conversation,
Yes,
because we have talked about every week to provide with a short educative talk here between us to later on but be used for others that they can use in their work in their active humanist activist groups and so on and by these short talks we hope to contribute to the growth and the good workings of the humanist movement in Africa, So thank you for the first experimental talk, and look forward to presenting another one next week.
perfect. Well, excellent, Julius.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
And
very.
thank you, everyone, for listening.
Yeah.
Take care.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, bye.
Thank you. Yeah. Bye. 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 I will take us now to stop the recording. Stop the recording.